it's Sharon Schmidt from Intuitive Souls and
Nick, the Roaming Intuitive. Welcome to another session with us, speaking of all things
Spirit Tailz.
Spirit Tailz. This time we're looking to do about transformation and the journey that people are taking at the moment. The energies, as you would have been very aware, that have been very challenging. They've been there to push us out of our comfort zones.
They absolutely have.
Which they've been very successful in doing. And how are we reacting to that?
Yeah, and look, it's a really interesting time. If you've been following our journeys, you'll probably even notice that I've been absent for a bit. And it's not so much I have been absent, I've just been working behind the scenes, and I've actually been taking some time out for me. One of the big things with this energy shift, and if you're not familiar what the energy shift is, let us know in the comments and we can come back and talk about the energy shift, exactly what we believe it is, because obviously there's a lot of information around there about that. But the energy shift has changed all of us, and it started pre-COVID, and we have all changed. Nick and I talk about this all the time, and just yesterday and then again today, which is why we said we need to talk about this more, we were talking about Nick's journey in particular as to where she's been, where she is now, and she doesn't really know where she's going, but what the possibilities are, which are unlimited. So Nick, I'm going to actually hand the mic to you a little bit, and let's hear a little bit about you, because I'm going to preset the scene by the fact that Nick attended a number of my workshops for a number of years. Yeah. And then she actually came down, and you may all know this story, but she came down and came to my retreat down at Bateman's Bay. And from there we talked about, she came and had a week with me here on our beautiful property. And she just had that yearning, and I said, well, you're welcome to come here.
Yeah, it was actually very interesting because I didn't expect to be down this way at all. I actually have had visions of moving to Melbourne, and maybe that's in the future, but I didn't dream I was going to be coming from Darwin down into the Canberra area by any way or means. And it was quite funny, actually. I met Sharon about 4 years ago. I signed up for a smudging workshop she was doing in Darwin. Next minute, all these workshops kept popping up. Oh, I want to do that. Oh, I want to do that. And before I knew it, I'd actually signed up for every single workshop that she was having. And it was from that very moment that I met Sharon that I actually felt this instant connection, an instant like we'd known each other before, and felt very much at home with Sharon. So I knew there was something in this, and this was way early into my spiritual I'm going to say awakening, in a sense, awareness that things were going on within me. I had a lot of interesting experiences going on that I couldn't explain with just normal human mind. So I did these workshops with Sharon, and then she just kept popping up in Facebook, and then doing night readings, and I felt very much I resonated with everything that she was saying, and what just the connection. I felt a connection was, I guess, the best way to describe it. And yes, I had been to her workshops in Darwin, and I really understood the benefits of doing that and seeing people transforming, including myself, just what in a couple of days what could change in yourself for the better. And then I saw her Bateman's Bay workshop, and I was like, oh, I'd really love to do that retreat. That'd be fantastic. And I thought, no, I go to the Darwin ones. But then a family member said to me, I really want to go to the Bateman's Bay retreat. And I was like, I actually do too. So we both signed up. We decided, let's do it.
Yeah.
And then situation happened with COVID, and she wasn't allowed to come, but I still had the opportunity to come down. So I did come down, and then Sharon graciously had me at her place for a week as well during the winter period. We had the icy landscape for me, which was totally novel, totally nothing I've ever lived in, and still at that point did not suspect that I would be moving down here.
No.
And it was over the period of that year up till now, well, up to a year ago when I actually got here, that I started to feel and see things that were really directing me into coming this way. I always had a very toxic work environment, and I've been there 15 years, so I was very comfortable in that space, but I could see the toxicity was elevating and it was affecting my health. I was in a unit that had ended up with very excessive mold issues, which once again was extremely giving me lung issues and infections and things. And I got to a point where I was going, and I was being resistant. I have to admit, I was definitely being resistant. And
I was being persistent, let me
Yes,
tell
she
you.
was.
For some reason, I just felt Nick had to be here. And so I would often ring her and well, I don't know how we chatted, actually.
It's just general chats we used to have.
Just even over Messenger.
Yeah.
And I would say, well, Nick, there's abundance of jobs here. You should come. And at that time, our studio was rented out.
Yes, indeed it was.
And then all of a sudden, they were meant to be there 5 years, and they just came to me one day and said, look, we need to find somewhere bigger. It's just not working for both of us. And I went, no worries, that's fine. It was a friend of mine, so I was really not an issue at all. And I said to Nick, well, I have the studio vacant now. If you want to come, there's lots of jobs. Take the risk. Jump out of the helicopter without the chute, and I promise you the universe will have your back. She's like, oh, no. I need to have a job before I come. I'm telling you, the universe will look after you. The universe, this is how I live my life. I live my life knowing, and it's funny, isn't it, Nick? I'm sure at times you always used to think, she is a Fruit Loop. She totally trusts and she totally believes. And you could see that I was living a great life, and you're here living this life now. I mean, you know it's not a lie.
You were living proof. I mean, I think for me, I knew it was to be true because you were living it. You were showing me the way. But what I think the biggest issue for me was I didn't believe I could have it or that I even deserved that.
Just programming though, Nick.
Totally.
It was really just, it's life programming. It's how we're brought up. I was brought up in a family where there was never enough. There was never ever enough. And when I did my theatre training, one of the big things was I said, I've for some reason in the last few months I've had this money issue, and the lady that I was working with had said to me, as practitioners we had to work on each other, and she said, well, go and ask your mother. Go and ask your mother how she felt about money. And so I did. That night I actually picked up the phone and I rang my mum and I said, Mum, can you tell me about money in our family? And my mum often talks a lot of lack. But when I actually asked her about it, she said, no, we had a very good life. We didn't really go without anything. I was like, what? And so that actually helped me. The next day I was able to go back to do the workshop, and I worked through that work. And I did let a lot of stuff go re my mother. Theta was wonderful, and being a practitioner is great as well, and a coach. But it's not just necessarily about theta or access bars or Reiki or energy work. It's a combination of continuously living, and I think that's what you've learnt over the time, Nick, is you had the week here with me. We did a lot of spiritual work.
Yeah.
Because Rob was away. He was stuck down the coast with COVID. And I think you were ready to jump. You still just had a lot of that old conditioning.
It was definitely old conditioning. I was a daughter of an artist, so there wasn't a lot of money in our family growing up. But in saying that too, it was that pre-conditioned thing from when we're growing up that you have a job, you work your butt off in that job, and you do not leave that job until you're ready to retire.
Yeah.
And you do, that's just the way it is. But that, I think, was still embedded in me. And
It was.
for me, having a steady job equaled security.
Yep.
And security for me was a big barrier that I had to walk over because I'd had some personal issues that I was working through where security was very much lacking, and was something that I was really longing to have. And for me, then taking control of my life was like, I need security. That's money. If I have the steady flow of money, I feel secure.
Yeah.
But there was more to it than
that. But that's what you'd learned. You'd seen that your dad as an artist would only have the money flowing in when he sold his work.
Yes.
And so for you thought security, and yet, interestingly enough, your dad was a beautiful man that lived a wonderful life and loved his art and loved his family.
Yeah.
And so for him, the money probably wasn't as big of an issue as it was for you. Again, coming back to me looking at my mother, you looking at your father, we were thinking that's the way it was. But what actually brought this conversation up today was, or was it yesterday? I can't really, it doesn't matter. But Nick had a thing pop up today that she's basically, Nick has actually been here over 12 months now here in Canberra. And basically she got here, she opted to take some time out, something that she would never have normally done. And I'm talking 8 months. She didn't just take 5 minutes. She had intended to take a month off. And, we talked about it, and I kept saying to her, Nick, just go with it. The jobs were coming in. Jobs weren't an issue.
No, not
She
at all.
could have walked into a job the next day. That was not the problem. She couldn't believe how we were going down to the coast for a retreat, and she was offered a job that day and was actually she had the interview and was offered the job, and she was totally blown away.
With half a day.
And as you know now, jobs here are even more abundant, more abundant. We can walk in and out of jobs whenever we choose. The muggle jobs, that is.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I mean, a job's a job, really. It depends how you look at it, isn't it? It's the energy that you give it. Just a bit like how you were giving your energy. And I guess the big thing I want you to share with people today, Nick, is, 8 months. You had 8 months off.
And for me, that was a very significant thing. It said I came here with the intent of maybe a month off at the most. So I was really forcing, even though my health was actually needing the rest. My lungs, even now, they're still working through, but they're getting there. They're getting better. But I was like, I have to go and get a job. And the reality was then I forced myself to go back to work before I was ready. Universe threw me into a job with the most toxic, unhealthy situation to push me back out of that job. It's like, you're not ready to go back. But I thought I needed to, because that's what I believed.
That's what you were conditioned to do.
Because it was preconditioned.
You're probably sitting out there going, yeah, but how did she survive? And okay, Nick and myself have been able to live a life of freedom by choices that we've made when we were younger, and how we've actually had saved money, and we've both had beautiful little safety nets. I mean, my husband and I have been self-managed, self-funded retirees for over 2 years. And it's about how you see yourself. Nick, one of the big things, like obviously jobs, we knew that you could just ask for a job and it would come on your doorstep.
Yes.
But also, because that will be the big thing that people out there are wondering about. Well, how did you afford it?
As I said, I think the biggest thing that I've had to learn, which is that it's law of attraction at the end of the day, is firstly, don't go out there thinking that, oh, I won't have enough money, because the universe will go, oh, you don't want enough money. Okay, that's fine. That's one thing I've actually had to really shift, is that mindset of lack. I go out there with the purpose of, don't go ridiculously spending or anything. I mean, I have days that I do, but that's fine.
And you've got to be real about it. If you've absolutely got no money and you go out and spend, buy a camper van, like I just did, and I don't have the money to buy that camper van, well, we're in a human world. Yeah. That's going to end in a disaster if you can't afford to pay for it. That's just as simple as it gets.
We said that today. We still have our own level of responsibility on
responsibility,
how we spend our money, but also how we make our money. I mean, I've been a cleaner, I said, right up to now in the corporate world, which I've done for many years. Both have their pain points, I'm going to say, but I was willing to do that because at the time that was like, for the cleaning job, my son was at school, so I could do that in schooling hours. So there are always ways and means that you can do it. But I think the biggest thing for me has been about trusting that it's there when you need it. Like, I'm about to step away. I've just done a 6-month contract.
Listen to this. Oh my goodness.
I'm about to step away once again after 6 months, and I'm taking 2.5 months off to go overseas, which I will share that journey with you. And
we'll do another vlog on that one, let me tell you.
And then there was this mindset with me as I'm still working through these processes, is how am I going to, we're not going to have any money coming through while I'm away. And then I said to Sharon, actually it was yesterday, the day before, I was like, well, I'll be trying to fill out taxes and I'll get some tax money back. Well, there's my money for my holiday. If I want to go and do something while I'm on holidays, I've done it. And I've actually, my holiday, I've been paying off over a year. So then it hasn't
Yes.
financially hit me in one go.
No.
It's been a gradual spend. So when I go over there, the only thing that I will have to purchase is any food or any fun activities I want to do.
But importantly now too, during that 8 months, Nick was actually able to set up her business.
Yes.
And so, which went from the Shamanic Angel, transitioned now recently to the Roaming Intuitive. And from that, she has created a number of programs. She does one-on-one services, and she's still continually creating, learning that she has to incorporate her travel, her cooking, her mediumship, her Reiki, all into one. And that's how she brings her clients together. And so you can actually book a session with Nick through her webpage or her Facebook, or you can call her. But I think the big thing and the really important that I really want to stress with you all is Nick, eventually I talked Nick into, and obviously she has her own free will, so it doesn't matter what I say or what I do, Nick still has her own free will to do whatever she wants.
We all do.
But she eventually made the decision to take a risk and just bite the bullet and come.
I did.
And Nick, I know when you first got here, you were talking a month. I'm going to have a month off. You know, I think did you get a job straight away and then you ended up not taking it or something? Something happened, didn't you?
I did sign up for a recruitment agency and they gave me all these job offers, and then,
they
were trying to put me into jobs that I said I actually didn't want. They were trying to force me.
They were just trying to get their money.
Yes, yeah, essentially. But at least at that point I was at the point where I would say no. Like I had a little bit of an idea of what I wanted and what I didn't want, but of course, as we've discussed,
let me assure you that has changed even more again.
It has changed. Well, each time I have these job journeys, I've learnt something from it. And this time, I think more than ever, I've got great clarity on the sort of work I want to do, the sort of work I don't want to do, and more importantly, because I want to move more into this spiritual space, is the amount of hours I don't want to do in the corporate world anymore.
And I think a big thing that the current job that you're in, you love it and you love the people in it, and it's such a creative space for you. So that's beautiful for you to actually be. I tend to think of that as a connection to your dad.
Oh, totally. Yes.
But really interestingly enough, you've learnt that, and also watching me, I'm about to transition back into the Muggle world. Yes. Why, you say? Because I just need to have that kind of connection. I just need a different connection. I'm only going back part-time, and so I won't be shutting my business. I'll still be keeping my business going. Nick and I laughed about this today. I did that for over 25 years before I opened Intuitive Soul. So what does it matter if I do that now? Except differently now, I won't be working full-time and running my business full-time. I'll be doing both part-time, quarter-time, and some retirement in there as well. But I think the really important part for that is you need to understand about what do you want? What do you want? Because I think originally Nick didn't know what she wanted.
Totally.
And look, what can I say? I have actually been on a journey of what do I want? Because I have had so much abundance thrown at me recently that I guess there is so much opportunity, and sometimes you need to work through that, because the opportunity that I have now, and this is a lot of work that I've been doing some work on recently, is the opportunity that I have now. I'm not the person that if I had this opportunity 10 years ago would make the choices that I'm making now. So, I need to look at the opportunities I have now and the person that I am now, and bring both of them together. I think that's really important, and that's what Nick's trying to do with where she is right now, knowing now what she wants in different jobs.
I think with age comes that understanding of what does healthy balance look like. Being from
for you, for you, because it's going to be different for me.
Absolutely. Coming from Darwin, we weren't impacted by COVID like all these southern spaces. So working from home, I think we did it for like a week and a half, so it really didn't register with me. But coming down here and living quite a distance from my work environment and coming home in the dark, and we've got a lot of kangaroos around here, that I had to really assess that sort of thing from a safety perspective as well, that I start work earlier and finish earlier so I can come home in a decent lit up time. So there were no negotiations that when I was in Darwin, I was 5 minutes from work. That was never a thought in my mind. So I've had to really reassess how I want my job to work. You know, I as an EA have always been, I guess, automatic in doing whatever the boss wants. That's what I've got to do. But as times change and as we all learn as we go along, is that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. And that negotiations can be put on the table.
Absolutely.
and you can get this arrangement that works for both parties and works fine.
And Nick's actually seen that from me, because the job that I've just taken is allowed. I'm working a 7-day fortnight. How exciting is that?
That's awesome.
I am working flexibly from home whenever I want. And my boss has even said to me, because she knows that we've recently bought a camper van, and that's why we've probably had such a big gap between our last vlog and this vlog, is because I haven't been home.
Yeah.
We've been out in the van.
As you should.
She's actually said if we want to go away, as long as I'm working and I do the work, she doesn't care.
Yeah.
And that's the way and look, as Nick probably hit the nail on the head, I'm not sure what it's working. I'm sure the Melbourne people have been working from home even more and still are as well. Queensland people probably not as impacted. I'm not sure. I think because the whole state was shut down as opposed to the people in the state being locked down. Whereas we were shut down as states, but we were, like Melbourne, we were also locked down as people as well. Not as long as Melbourne, but as people we were locked down. And then when it changed where you didn't even have to isolate, they still, our surrounding area is ACT, and so very, very precautious, I would say. Yeah. And so there's still a lot of people that, even though that is not really affecting them, they're still working from home. Yeah. And so Nick has actually seen and heard those conversations more than she would ever have, and gone, and I've also encouraged her to say, well, hey, now when you go back after your trip overseas, you need to be very clear on what you want in a job. And Nick's like, yeah, I do. And I've actually seen that now. Yeah. And I know that because she's had now the taste of working from home. Yeah. And she's like, yeah, that's what I want. Yes. And people around us everywhere here, like all of, our friends here, Helen and Nikki and all, you see all of them working from home.
Absolutely. It's just a matter of, this is the thing now moving forward. When I come back from my leave, I'll reassess how I'm feeling. Yeah. And I will write down, what do I want in my job? I want, time so I can work on my spiritual stuff. But I also need that time for my self-care and all that sort of thing as well. Like it's gaining a healthy balance in my working life and my private life. And I'm excited now because I've seen the possibilities that I had not lived, so I was not aware of them. But now that they've been brought to the forefront, it will make my choices a lot easier moving forward, knowing that I've got a better chance now of having a better fit in whatever I choose to go forward with. If it doesn't fit, I won't be taking it.
And Nick, tell us, as a young woman, because I think for me, I probably just said to you, just do it, Nick. You just have to believe. You just have to do it. And I think I've been living this life for so long that I probably become a little bit complacent sometimes. And I do not probably have that empathy for someone like you that had that fear. For someone sitting out there now that's saying, and we're not saying everybody move to Canberra. We're absolutely not saying that at all. We're not saying pack up everything and throw everything away. We're not saying that. We have to do what works for you. Living your best life is going to be different for you than what it is for me. And you have to figure out who you are and what you want in life. And we have changed. We've all changed. And if you're saying that you haven't, I think you're a bit of a bullshitter.
Well, I think you just need to look back. I just said, Sharon, the last couple of days, I've actually looked back just from this last year, which has been quite a significant change for me.
And that's what brought a lot of these conversations up.
And I've really seen, I've grown quite significantly. And I think you really have to do a self-assessment on where you're at, how you're actually feeling inside. And if it's not feeling right, then what do you need to do to adjust it so that you do feel right? Because living our best life, you should feel good in it. It should fit you like a glove. And that's, if it's not feeling like that, you need to look in the areas of what needs addressing.
And you have to also identify that you're going to live, we're in a muggle world, we're living a muggled life.
Absolutely.
You know, we're humans, for goodness sakes. We're just having this human experience. As spiritual beings, we still have what we know, and what is when you actually connect with that. When you become connected to your inner knowing, you then start to live a life that's very different, because you just live that intuitive life that's trusting and believing. However, it doesn't mean that you can control everything around you, or your reactions sometimes, your actions. I always talk about your choices, your actions, your reactions, and your thoughts. They're the only things really you can control. But in saying that, a woman like me who's been doing this work for a long time now, I still have to do a self-assessment. I still have to check in with me. I still have to understand what I want and where I'm going, because that changes all the time. Because as we change in life, our journey changes too. And so it's a bit like, would you stay with the same bank that just kept putting your interest rates up and up and up and up and up, and yet there was a bank over there that didn't put their interest rates up as often? No, you'd be going over to see what the bank over there's got, to actually see if you can get a better interest rate, because you want to save the best and do the best for you. That is like your life. I can't stress that enough. So Nick, brings me back to my question. What you know now,
yes,
after 12 months,
yes,
what would you tell people out there that are feeling stuck, feeling like they don't belong, feeling like they need change, whatever else is not aligning to them right now, and they feel like this is just not working for me and I need to do something different? What advice could you give them?
Well, I think, once again, if you're feeling like things aren't fitting for you and they're not right, because as we grow, things have got to change. I mean, that's why things don't feel right anymore, because the universe is trying to gently guide us towards what I call our true north, our true path in which we're meant to walk, that feels like it fits like a glove for us. So I think the first thing is to self-assess. So look at your life. As I said, we're not in control of anybody around us. We're only in control of what we can do for ourselves. And then from there, look at what bits you need to change in your life. And you don't have to do it all at once. It's little pieces of steps. You just take a step at a time and just do one bit at a time. I think the first thing you really need to do, things that aren't serving you, you need to let them go. It's very much like if you're looking
What
to
does that mean?
declutter your life.
What is actually, this is probably some of the questions in my soul membership too.
Yep.
What does it actually mean to let it go? What do you, you know, you spiritual people, and I'm just, you know, looking at this from a third person here. You spiritual people always talk about letting stuff go or forgiveness and all. What does that all mean?
Well, I guess to use it for, say, example with me, I had a toxic work environment. Well, why would I want to stay in an environment that doesn't respect me? It's actually making me physically ill. And when you're in a long-term amount of stress, as a lot of you might know, the disease can lead to disease.
Yes.
Do you want your life to end in that way? Absolutely not. So if you're in a situation like that, then you might say, I need to look at getting another job or something else that doesn't have me feeling in this dreadful state. I'm going to have to say dreadful state. Same thing with the unit. The unit was making me physically sick with the mold. So then it would be a matter of, do I just need to move into another unit or share with somebody? If it's like, say financially you were stretched, maybe you need to share with somebody. Like there's always alternatives to do, but letting go means then removing that from your life in order to then have something come in that's actually better aligned to you.
Yes.
And actually makes you feel good inside and not makes you feel dreadful inside. If you're feeling dreadful inside, then there's something that needs to go, because that's not a natural body state to be in. Tell
us, what were the first steps you made when you, well, actually, no, let's take it back even further. What actually made you make the decision to come here?
I initially said my biggest concern was work, thinking I needed to have a job before I come down there.
And then you had 8 months off?
I actually...
See, we just never know what's around the
well,
corner.
yeah, I was applying for jobs and nobody would take me seriously. And I was actually sitting with a friend one night. I was very unhappy in every aspect of my life, and I just turned to her and I went, it was just like I had this aha moment, and I said, I need to go. And Sharon's been saying this for like months and months.
But, you know, we have our own free will.
But it was at a point in time, it just, as we were talking, it just clicked and everything fell into place, and I said, I have to go. And I literally went back to work that next week and handed in my resignation. And that minute that I did that, there was a sense of freedom and release that came with that, which was quite, it just felt like this burden had fallen away from me, which was such an amazing feeling. There was still that little bit in the back of my mind thinking, oh, you know, I've got to get down now. I'll take a month off because I had a payout, so I knew that I had the ability to, you know, comfortably take that month off, no problem at all. But the universe had obviously different plans. It's like, your health is not right.
But also, you were telling me today when we were talking about this, that you'd been to and had a reading well before all this. And
Yes.
someone had said that you were going to take 8 months off.
Well, up to 4 months, they said.
Up to 4 months,
We'd need up to 4 months.
Okay, up to 4 months,
Yes.
sorry.
And I went, oh yeah, well, they said 1 to 4 months. And I'm like, yeah, 1 month's doable. I'm not going to take 4 months off. No way. No way.
So what about now comparing that you, you know, that you thought you were going to take a month off and you actually took off 8. Tell us how all of that worked for you.
Well, that was quite a interesting, I'm going to say gently guided piece of my life as well, because it started off, I said, after the month, I thought, I've got to get a job. So I get this job. It's as toxic as anything. It's toxic, just as toxic as I had, and if anything, probably more so, because this person that I was dealing with direct was right up beside me. So I was like, really, universe? Really? Is this what you're doing? So within 2 months,
And isn't that, sorry,
gone.
I need to interrupt you there, because I'm like, you're going, really, universe? And what about the universe going, really, Nick? We told you not to go back to work yet.
Exactly. We told you to take 4 months off.
And it's like, isn't that funny how we immediately blame you, universe, or blah, 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 blah. And yet, when we flip it.
Yeah. Well, we treat it like that they're punishing us.
That's exactly
and they're not.
right.
They're just like, you know, you're not supposed to be there.
Yes, we're just actually guiding you in the right direction.
Yeah, so then from there I finished that up. But then I knew that we were coming up to a point we were going to do our trip to New Zealand. So then I thought, well, there's no point going back to work for a couple of months, because then I'll be telling him, you know, I need to go again. So I didn't go back to work. And then we had our New Zealand trip.
And who would have thought? She's finished up work, she was taking a month off, and she ended up with 4 months off.
Yeah.
We went to New Zealand, like this trip to New Zealand on a boat with Esther Hicks. And if those of you that don't know who Esther Hicks is, she's like one of our idols in the spiritual world. And she was on a cruise. She was doing the celebrity cruise. So we went to a 3-day workshop. 4 of us incredible women actually got to go on that journey, and we shared that adventure. Would you have even imagined that could have happened for you?
Never. And the funny part was, I thought, I'll finish the
I
cruise.
knew I was going, by the way, because I'd actually tried to book it pre-COVID and couldn't get on it. And
Yeah.
so
And
I knew I was eventually going.
Yeah, and I was moving, so I was telling everyone, including my friend who I'm now doing this trip with in 6 or 7 weeks, oh no, I've got to go to work. They won't give me the time off. I won't be able to go. I'm sorry, I can't go. And I'd said this with the girls. And there was something during that night I got.
I think we were all just chatting, like
Yeah.
So the group that was actually originally Alex was coming with us, but Alex couldn't come, and we ended up with the beautiful Maya. So, but we shared Alex. We took her on that journey with us.
Yes.
But it was interesting. Like, it was such an incredible time, and when we were, and I've gone, I'm in. I didn't even think about it, did I? Like,
Yeah, no.
I'm like, I'm in. I'm going. And
I
you
was
were
like,
I'm
no, I
not
can't.
going,
I'm about, you know, I've got to get down here. I've got to get a job. I can't go. And then it was overnight. I literally, the next morning I woke up and I went,
No, it was Tracy that swapped with Alex.
yeah, I have to go.
Yeah.
I knew I had to go. So I messaged back and said,
I'm coming.
I've changed my mind. I'm coming.
Yeah.
So we did the New Zealand trip. So then in my mind, we're like, right, I'll come back and then I'll get into a job. No, No, that did not happen. I got COVID because...
And we shared a room, she got COVID, and I used to say the whole time, I'm not getting COVID. Not getting COVID. I won't be getting COVID.
And I've been saying that, but I was trying to force myself once again back to work. So the universe goes, it's not time for you to come back to work. We're going to give you COVID. So I got COVID, and I after I was very sick because
you were
my lungs
very sick.
My lungs were still affected by the mold. So it actually been quite a number of weeks. I put it back out into the university, out into the recruitment. I'm ready to look for a job. So they came up with 2 jobs. Now the first job, I got given the wrong address. I was actually an hour late to the interview. So I went, that's gone to shit, let's just say that. And then I had this other job, and it's actually the job that I've got now, ironically, but at that time it was a lower paying job. And I was still really sick. And after the stress of running around this other job, I pulled up outside this place and went, I can't do it. I'm not meant to do it. I felt dreadful. I felt sick. And I was just like, this is ridiculous. What am I doing? So I rang them up. I said, I'm sorry, but I'm very unwell. I'll have to leave it. So I then allowed myself time to get better, which is what I should have been doing in the first place. And within the January, not only did I have this job, but they'd elevated it to another couple of levels and changed the title of the job, to something a bit more interesting. So if I'd taken it as it was, I not only would have had a lower paying job, but one that was not as interesting as what this was to be. And here I am now. I'll finish the contract up, and literally a week after I finish my contract, I fly to the UK for my amazing trip.
And which we'll obviously vlog, but Nick herself, if you follow her on her at The Roaming Intuitive, I always get that wrong, it's The Roaming Intuitive. Yes. She's on TikTok, she's on YouTube, she's on Facebook, and she's on Insta. Yes. You can follow her journey, and I really admire her because I've lived, it's actually been very interesting for me because I live my life, as you know, Nick, in belief, in trust. Like, I knew I was going to New Zealand. There was no way. I tried to talk my husband into going to see Esther, and he was like, I'm not going on that. I'm going, but like, you can be in the club and stuff while I go to the workshops. He's like, nah. And so when it came up, I was out. I was going. I was going to be there. So I didn't even hesitate with that. And, as Nick has seen, there's a number of things. If I know if I want something, I'm going to manifest it, and I get it, don't I? Yep. But I just totally trust, and I expect that's just what's going to happen. And just as you're going along, you're learning to do the same. And how exciting is that?
Trust is a very big thing.
Oh,
trusting that everything is actually going to work out, because I have no reason to believe otherwise, because, in my mind, this is not how it should have been. And I am free. I'm doing the things that I love.
Yeah.
And I have the ability to help others get to that point as well. That's my ultimate goal, to share my passion with everybody out there that wants a piece of that action.
How exciting is that? And it's just trust. I can't, the law of attraction, and look, I was listening to something this morning about the law of attraction, the movie The Secret. And I actually watched something the other night, a movie, The Secret. It was another movie that they made after The Secret, and it's a love story, and it was actually really nice. I think it was The Secret, Peace and Calm, or something like that. I can't remember what it was. But it was just where, this woman had all this stuff go wrong with her, and her and her children, her husband had died, and her and her children were just had started to become really negative. Like everything was, that can't, oh no, we just always have bad luck, or that never happens to us, or we could never win that, or we could never do that. Basically victim state really is what it is. Yeah. And this guy came into her life, and he didn't know how to come into what it was, he had met her husband, and they were in the plane crash together. He survived, and her husband didn't. But she didn't know who he was. And so, now I'm going to spoil it for you if you want to watch it, but it was just, I just love stories. And basically what happened was, they ended up together, but he was trying to bring her they had created, in the short time, I think they were together for 2 days, her husband and him were together for 2 days, and during that time they invented something. And this young fellow had promised the husband that he would get the patent happening. And when they did, they'd worked it out how much money they would make from it. And so this guy was actually bringing her a copy of the patent papers and a check. Now, the woman had had a tree fall through her roof and all these really negative things happened, but this guy was just this guiding light of faith and hope and trust and belief. And anyway, long story short, I'm not going to tell you exactly what happened in the end, but if you want to watch it, go and watch it so you can, fill your own heart. But it's really, I can't stress enough how just trusting and believing, and it's just like the dominoes fall when you kick your toe and then you have a shit day for the rest of the day. Your life goes the other way too, where you actually have a great day and it gets even bloody better.
And I think too, another thing to remember is don't give up at that final hour, because how many times people say, I was just about to give up on doing this, or just about to give up on doing that, and then all of a sudden, voila, here it is. Yeah. It's happened. I think that is something I've sort of, because we get challenged all the time, and it's points in our lives like, I've had enough, I cannot take any more, and yet we do. We do, and we come stronger for it. So I think that's another thing. Don't give up on that final hour, because that final hour could be your hour. Yes.
Yeah. And on that note, let's call it a wrap and make it your hour. Make it your hour. Be sure to follow, send this off to friends and family that you think that might enjoy it. But if you're sitting out there and you're thinking, I really need to make some change, map it down, create a map, do a little map of what's not working. This is not working. I need to change jobs. What skills do I need to change jobs? How much money do I need to pay my bills? Otherwise, Nick and I, we're both coaches. We're both mediums. We both hold one-on-one sessions. I'm holding less and less these days. We do group stuff. We have our pajama party coming up, so jump on and get onto our jump
Very exciting.
Early bird tickets are only $47
till the 20th of June, and then and we'll be giving away prizes, and we're actually each giving away a session worth $150. So if you buy a ticket, you go into the draw for that.
Nick has her daily readings. You're not alone. We both, on my website, www.intuitivesouls.com.au, and your website,
roamingintuitive.com.
We have got freebie stuff there for you. Go and get it and use it. Start the change today. And maybe that's what I need to do. Maybe I need to create a template for a mud map for you to be able to make change in your life. Because the minute you do, you'll never look back.
That's right. That's your first step forward.
It is. Take care, be kind, and know you are always enough.
See you next time. Take
care.
Good
dogs. Bye for now.
Bye.